What is up, everybody, and welcome. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at this Brian Nadeau Mini Typhoon. This knife is on loan to us from my friend John, who is kind enough to send along this Typhoon, as well as this Clyde Challoner Talon and Grimsmo Rask. Can you guys believe that? Big shout out to John. Really appreciate him sending all that along. Let's go ahead and jump into a quick size comparison, just so you guys can get an idea of how the Mini shapes up. Now, if you guys are interested in a full-size Typhoon, I have done a video on that in the past. It didn't work out so well. It was a knife that I actually purchased and then sent back the next day because I had some problems with it. So that was kind of a bad first introduction to Brian's work, and a little bit unfortunate. But if you're kind of interested in seeing, what the full-size one's all about, you can go check out that video and at least get a brief idea of how it shapes up. So you can see here that the Mini is still not so mini, right? There's a lot of mini knives coming onto the market. The Mini A6 that I recently released a video on had a lot more in common with the Rat 2 than it did the PM2, whereas you can see that the Mini Typhoon has a lot more in common with the PM2 than the Rat 2. Lots of 2s going on in this video. But yeah, so it's not that mini. It just means that the full size is pretty big, right? And it's kind of weird because the full-size Bodega, absolutely ginormous, and the mini Bodega, pretty freaking small. So the fact that the full-size Typhoon and the mini Typhoon are so close in nature is kind of interesting, kind of an interesting market decision on Brian's part. So Brian Nadeau and I, we have a bit of an imperfect history. And so it all started with the full-size Typhoon. It was a 2014 model, I believe directly from the 2014 Blade Show, and it had been previously owned, and then it showed up on Arizona Custom Knives from where I purchased it, and then it was crummy, so I sent it back, and then I had somebody send in a Brian Nadeau Cyclone, and I liked that knife, but it had like a really weird disengagement thing with the shape of the lock bar, and the action was kind of like meh, like it didn't drop shut or anything, and so I just kind of didn't really get what it was all about, because Brian has been going home with Best Tactical Folder for at least 2 Blade shows now, maybe more. Like, he wins crazy awards for these knives, and I couldn't really understand why. So because of this sort of disparity between my experience with the maker and everybody else's experience with the maker, I was determined to keep an open mind about him and continue to try out his knives. So when I actually went to Blade Show, I tried out some of Brian's knives, and I tried out a Mini Typhoon just like this. My friend Sid actually purchased a Mini Typhoon, so I tried his, and I tried a couple different ones that were at the table, plus I tried a bunch of full-size knives that were at the table, and literally none of them impressed me. I was like not happy with any of them. I am pleased to announce that I'm actually super happy with this knife, and while it does have some issues that I'm going to go over, it is by a far cry way better than any of the other knives I've handled of Brian's. And so I don't know if that's a consistency thing, or if it's just because this one's broken in and his knives need to be broken in, and a lot of the ones I've tried haven't been. And then there's that one that I started with that was just, it had some corks from the previous owner that it just wasn't as described. It was the only problem with it, and it had kind of a crummy action. But that's kind of like enough story time. I'm sorry to have wasted your time. I just wanted to give some context for this video because, this is a big deal, me finally finding one that I like and that I can say positive things about. So I'm really happy about this. I'm really happy that John was able to send this by and that I was able to check it out. So let's go ahead and jump into some features and flaws. The first thing that I'm going to talk about right out the gate, let's get the action out of the way, right? That was a serious problem that I had on some of his other knives. He makes these detents. There you go. He makes these detents that they're like cut in the shape. He like cuts a hole that's like kind of comes to a tip, and then he shaves down the detents so that it's the same shape. And so you have kind of, it's like a teardrop shape, and the tip is where it breaks. So it's got this really clean ramp. It's kind of like the front of a boat cutting through water. It's got a really clean ramp to go up and exit out of the detent hole, and that's what gives it such a snappy deployment. If you watch this, I'm really not going to put a lot of pressure on the knife, okay? We're just going to kind of just break the detent. Look at that deployment, and you can hear it snap, and you can kind of see that it's got a lot of force when, I'm just kind of preloading and just pulling until it breaks. Really, really snappy and clean. I love the sound of the steel lock bar insert clacking onto the tang of the blade. It's a really good, clean sound. Definitely appreciate that. And I've had trouble with these other detents of his because the other ones that I've seen have been more flat-faced, kind of closer to like a Grimsmo. And they've had really large flat faces. And, a large flat face isn't great against a tang because it's more contact, it's more surface area, which means more friction. What he's done on this one seems a little bit newer. And obviously, with something that's hand-finished like that, he'll learn to improve over time. And I'm given to understand that this technique in the first place comes from guns. But I don't know anything about that, so I'm not going to get into that. But what he appears to have done on this one versus some of the other ones I've seen is it's not as flat-faced. It's very much like a teardrop. It's very smooth. So it's actually not that much contact with the face of the tang. And so he kind of gets the best of both worlds. He gets that really low contact from having a rounded edge that you get from like a ceramic detent ball. And then he gets that super snappy deployment from having sort of that teardrop shape where it's able to ride out on that ramp. So it's kind of a really interesting thing. I think he's the only maker doing anything like that. And it hasn't worked on other examples that I've tried, but it really, really works on this knife. So as you can see here, no lock stick or anything. And then as soon as I disengage, we are going to shake the knife shut. And I know that looks like it takes like a lot of effort. If you guys saw the Clyde Challenor video, this knife. But see, when I'm doing it with this knife, I don't know if you can hear. You can hear the detent kind of scraping along, and that has a little bit to do with oil, but it's also from the pressure of this lock bar. And I'm every time I shake it, it's like gaining momentum and then losing momentum, and gaining momentum and losing momentum. And it's really important that I explain that even though I have to shake this knife almost as much, it never loses that momentum. It's always falling shut, even if it's just micrometers. You know what I mean? From that residual momentum, it's always gliding shut. Every motion that I make, it never stops gliding shut. It's really hard to explain. There's a couple viewers out there that are action snobs like me that I know that you're going to know what I'm trying to say, but it's a really hard thing to describe. But so even though it does take a few shakes, it's not starting and stopping between every shake. It's kind of always, hydraulically closing every time I'm doing that shaking. So whatever, I'm not going to spend too much more time on that. Talking about the ergonomics of the knife, it's pretty simple, pretty basic, no jimping or anything. Good ergonomics. You guys can kind of see it for yourself. It's a pretty straight handled knife, pretty standard kind of indent here. Obviously the flipper tab, cool design, cool shape. As I slice open my finger, trying to tell you I can't slice open my finger, you can see it's going to keep you from sliding up on the knife or anything like that. The speed holes, those are going to be entirely aesthetic. If you want a full frame, he makes those. If you want something a little bit lighter, which I think somebody going for the Mini might, then the speed holes look good. I do like that it's progressive. They're not all the same size. So these two are the smallest, medium, biggest. It's kind of a nice touch. And of course, this is a super user finish. You have this sort of, it looks like an acid wash and tumble finish. Might just be acid wash, hard to say. But bead blasted finish here. And then I guess actually it's probably an acid wash blasted finish is actually what you're looking at on the blade here. And of course, you have a super useful kind of flat cutting edge, nice medium sort of aggressiveness in terms of the belly, and a typical drop point blade. So overall, the ergonomics and everything, super useful, definitely going to be a great user of a knife. But then the last thing that I have to say about this knife is a huge negative, and this is sort of there's actually two things to talk about. The first is a problem that I have with all of Brian's knives, and it's something that he does, and that's fine, and every maker has a right to make a knife the way that they want to make it. But these stainless steel, yes, not titanium, stainless steel clips suck. They have tension that is ridiculous. You can see how tiny this thing is. It's got this ramp that's like fine, I guess. It works okay on this knife. The stainless steel clip on the full-size Typhoon is ugly. There's like no shaping to it. It's just like this little... It just sucks. Guys, I don't understand why... Sorry if you can hear my dogs barking in the back. I don't understand why on a $6 or $5 or $7 or $900 knife, whatever you're paying for in terms of the finishing on one of his knives, why are you giving me a stainless steel press clip? It's really annoying. I understand, I like the fact that they have this cool thing where the clip goes inside, and it's obviously internal hardware, but he didn't just make it look like internal hardware. It actually kind of like goes into the knife and disappears into who knows where kind of thing. That's a cool look, but you can do that with any material, man. So the stainless steel clip thing, absolutely killing me. It rusts. It's got too much tension. It's too strong. This is probably the best one I've tried so far, but I tried the Cyclone and all that, and I'm just tired of the stainless steel clip, man. I really want something better than that. And then, of course, another big pet peeve, you guys know this with me, is the edge here is sticking up pretty close. I don't know if I'm doing a good or a horrible job of showing you that. I apologize. But yeah, you run your finger along the back of this, especially right up here towards the tip, and you've got a big old slice down your finger. So I understand that knife makers are trying to fit as much blade into the package as they can, but please don't do so at the expense of my safety. That's pretty freaking annoying. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Big thanks to John for sending along these two other knives. I was really excited to be able to try a Nadeau that I actually really like. I know that I ended on some negative things, and so that might seem like I have a negative opinion of the knife, but I really don't. Like, I would own this. I would like pay like full price for this. I would buy like a new one of these. I really, really like this knife. I think the action on it is absolutely killer. I love it. I think it sounds great. I think the knife feels great in the hand. I think it's a super good user. Big fan. Big fan. So I was really glad to be able to try a Nadeau that I like. So thanks so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to see beautiful pictures of these amazing knives, you can do so by following me on Instagram at tovarishworks. And of course, if you'd like to send me an email, you can do so by reaching me at tovarishworks@gmail.com. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. This knife is on loan to us from my friend John, who was kind enough to send along both, or include it. Jesus fucking Christ.